Why France just turned off the cameras at its most critical border. We are examining a fracture in the architecture of the modern European state. At the edge of the continent, the theoretical enforcement of a digital fortress has violently collided with the physical reality of mass transit. The state apparatus attempted to encode the border. The physical space refused to comply. What follows is a logistical audit documenting the precise mechanical and procedural failures that forced a critical override of centralized law.
Consider the gray, churning expanse of the English Channel. For centuries, this 20-mile strip of water functioned as a geographic moat. Today, it has transitioned into a digital choke point. In the shadow of the White Cliffs, the heavy machinery of state logistics is grinding to a halt against the invisible, absolute demands of centralized code. This is the exact site of the juxtaposed border controls, a unique legal architecture born of the Sungate Protocol, an agreement which now forces French biometric mandates to execute directly upon British tarmac.
Act 1. The 4-minute vehicle trap. The mathematical certainty of gridlock.
We begin the first phase of this system audit by observing the unforgiving mathematics of the 2026 European Union entry and exit system enforcement. The metrics observed at the Port of Dover and the Folkestone Eurotunnel are absolute. They do not bend to political rhetoric. For decades, the logistical pulse of this frontier was measured in a 30-second analog beat, a manual passport check, a momentary glance from an officer, and a wave to proceed. But the enforcement of these new biometric systems has transformed that steady pulse into a terminal architectural blockage. Upon the activation of the digital kiosks, the processing time per vehicle did not merely double, it multiplied by 8. The legal mandate now requires passengers to physically disembark their vehicles to register fingerprints and facial scans, extending a standard transaction to an agonizing 4 minutes.
The findings documented in the House of Commons May 2026 audit reveal a compounding logistical crisis. The concrete reality of the Western docks was simply never designed to absorb this digital load. Every single car that is forced to pause and feed biometric data into the central database adds an unyielding link to a chain of steel and exhaust. This mathematical certainty creates immediate highway gridlock across southern England. It is a severe threat to regional trade and supply chain stability. The economic survival of the entire region is effectively paralyzed before a single vehicle's tire ever touches a ferry ramp.
Act 2. Environmental and hardware collapse. The concrete reality of the Western docks.
We must now transition from theoretical data flows to the physical anomalies of the space itself. It is here that the high-altitude dream of a seamless digital fortress shattered completely against the harsh, concrete reality of the Kentish coast. The parliamentary records provide a stark documentation of mundane physical failures. The state had developed a contingency plan to keep travelers inside their cars using advanced technology. Yet we note the total abandonment of this multi-million-dollar handheld tablet contingency. This massive financial investment was entirely defeated by the basic elements of the shoreline.
Let us trace the exact environmental physics that broke the system. Step 1. On the open tarmac, the intense coastal sunlight produced a glare on vehicle windscreens that proved too harsh for the sensitive optics. It warped the facial geometry scans into unrecognizable, rejected data. Step 2. The damp, salt-heavy sea air of the coast settled directly onto the scanning glass of the hardware itself. This triggered endless, unresolvable fingerprint verification loops. The technology simply froze. Travelers were left stranded in a state of terminal system failure.
The automated dream retreated in defeat. The conclusion of this physical audit is absolute. High-density vehicle infrastructure simply cannot be managed by hardware that flinches at the sun and ceases to function in the presence of salt air. The grand vision of a frictionless border surrendered to the environment, leaving the automated state reduced to a series of static, malfunctioning kiosks, housed inside damp shipping containers.
Act 3. The border lottery. Selective desperation and Article 7.
We enter the final phase of this audit, examining the deeply fractured reality of current border enforcement. Centralized law is no longer uniformly applied. It is subject to localized, selective desperation. We observe a stark divergence in protocol. At compliant airport hubs, such as Paris, Charles de Gaulle, or Brussels, travelers are locked within an airport digital cage. Strict system compliance is absolute, resulting in 3-hour queues under the silent binary judgment of the biometric matching service.
Contrast this with the ferry lane bypass on the coast, where unilateral emergency actions have entirely circumvented this central database.
The severity of the airport digital cage is defined by a single number, 91. There is no longer an analog grace period. If a traveler remains in the zone for 91 days, the system flags the violation the exact millisecond their passport touches the glass. This mathematical trigger automatically enforces a strict 3-year biometric ban, punishing even a few hours of bad math with absolute unfeeling precision.
Yet, facing the total collapse of local logistical integrity at the ports, the fortress blinked. We record France's tactical retreat. French border chiefs stationed on British soil made a discretionary decision. They invoked the built-in flexibility of the Article 7 emergency loops. In a direct override of the system they helped build, they deliberately shut off the biometric scanning kiosks for vehicles and ferries. They actively chose practical traffic fluidity over European Union data integrity, bypassing the digital mandate to save their own local infrastructure and regional supply chains from catastrophic gridlock.
The digital fortress is fractured. The data stream has been intentionally severed by the state itself, simply to maintain physical motion. As this audit concludes, one traveler is trapped in a sterile digital cage, while another is waved through a deactivated ferry lane with a rapid manual check. We are left with a critical uncertainty regarding the fragility of state infrastructure. Will tomorrow's traveler face the cold, unforgiving reality of the centralized machine or the ghost of the analog border?